It's social distancing at the Chamber, another edition with the CEO of the Arizona Chamber, Glenn Hammer. It's Happy Hour with Hammer. My name is Garrick Taylor. Glenn, a member almost of the Five Timers Club, Jim Round's joining us today.
Well, we've got the best economist in the great state of Arizona with us, so it's always a treat to have Jim on the show.
Jim, you've done over the last several months a lot of analysis digging into Proposition 208. That's an income tax increase. It's going to be on the November ballot. Let's talk about a few analyses that have gotten out into public. The first is from it's dated September of 2020. It's entitled Prop 208, InvestNet is investing in the Arizona economy. It's by a professor at the ASU College of Law, Professor Aaron Scharf. The message out of that paper, fairly rosy, that only good things will result from Proposition 208. Jim, I understand that you have a different view.
Yeah, well, a lot of these counter studies, when we did our analysis, we didn't go in with a bias. We looked at the numbers, we looked at the facts, we looked at economic theory, we did interviews, we talked to tax accountants, we talked to lawyers. Sorry for the noise, I'm outside. It was a very thorough analysis. That's why we have specific numbers. The one out of ASU that I was disappointed with just simply referenced, you're going to have a very small number of people that will be impacted by the initiative. Well, that's even what we said to get at these huge economic impacts. We have 90,000 filers out of a couple of million being impacted, and 45,000 of those are small businesses. Well, I think it does small businesses a disservice to say that's a very small and irrelevant number, because in economics, when you look at the size of the economy, small percentages matter. Did you know that as of today, during this COVID recession, we're still down about 5% of our workforce that was previously employed? Does that mean they're irrelevant because it's only 5%? When the 45,000 small businesses represent 7% of all those businesses that have at least one employee. You can't just listen to that, propaganda. You have to look at numbers. You can't just say it's a small number. You have to explain why it's relevant or irrelevant. And this study glosses over everything. And some of the other studies that have been out there talks about the investment in education. I'm a proponent of that, doing it in the right way where you have a good return on investment. I did some analyses for Rodell and showed that if we address some poverty issues in a very efficient way, we'll have a great return at the state level over time. So I believe in investing in it, but we have to do it the right way. And I understand that the opposition or the proponents are very much frustrated, but I'm still going to remain a purist. I think that when we implement big public policy changes, it should be analyzed thoroughly. And that's what we did. And I have yet to see another analysis anywhere near ours in terms of the complexity and how we were being careful with the estimates.
Jim, could you just remind viewers the highlights? I mean, I believe from your study, again, conservative study, it found that we would lose well over 100,000 jobs, as well as $2.4 billion of state and local revenue over a 10-year period. Those are big numbers.
Yeah, and we were criticized quite heavily in the last couple of weeks for saying the sky is falling. Well, we broke our analysis into individual components. We reduced our rate of growth over the next 10 years from 1.7 to 1.6. That's not the sky is falling. We had a reduction in the number of business recruitments based on talking with many, many people that do this for a living and what we've seen in other states. And these very small changes add up. And that's why when you're arguing that small percentages or small numbers don't matter, they add up. And the 124,000 lost jobs was the lowest possible number that I could force. My baseline was nearly 260,000 lost jobs over that period. But I felt like in case there's unknowns, in case there'll be some additional scrutiny, I wanted to show what even the most optimistic scenario looked like and see if people liked it. So it wasn't overly conservative. It's just we took the time to do the math and the others have not. And it's starting to irritate me.
Jim, do you find this conversation terribly productive when it goes down this road, which is if you are a small business that's going to be affected by Proposition 208, then you're not really a small business. The paper that we're discussing today cites major name brands that pay their income tax as pass-throughs. Talk a little bit about this back and forth about what's really a small business, and do you find that to be a productive part of this debate?
Well, the small business definition, the one that's generally accepted across the country, is less than 500 employees. I generally think that the upper end should be around 100. What we did is we not only looked at tax records, we looked at Census Bureau data, we looked at Small Business Administration data. Again, we talked to accountants and attorneys and others. And most of the larger businesses have to file as C corps because they'll have shareholders. If you're an S corp, you have to have a limited number of partners and owners. And our definition, so those that are impacted, our 90,000 total and the 45,000 small businesses, those are ones with 20 or fewer people. You have to cross-check these numbers. You can't get all the data out of a tax record. That's why that paper written by the attorney completely ignored half of the math that you need to do this right. And I'm not upset with the proponents. I'm upset with the fact that I think that people should be able to vote on a policy matter based on facts. And these economic arguments are facts. They're not going to be countered by any legitimate analysis. If you try to focus on academic papers, the academic papers across the US, they're not focused on Arizona specific items. Every economy is different. You can't just look at one item. You can't say investing in education tends to help the economy, therefore we should do whatever. You have to find a balance because there's dozens of things that make the economy tick. And that's what we've been studying for the last 2.5 decades. And so I feel comfortable that there is not another analysis that's anywhere near ours in terms of capturing the real impact. And quite frankly, I think the advocates should just say, the numbers are right, they might even be low, but here's why we still think you should vote for it, rather than going down the road of trying to discredit the only people that volunteered their time to put the right numbers out.
Jim, no, we would wish that the Prop 208 people would be straightforward with the people of Arizona, that yes, this of course is going to damage the economic recovery. We don't know how much, but we know it's going to hurt. And, you know, I was thinking also of just on a broad theme, the states, sorry, it's incoming call. The state's reputation. You're an economic development organization. You're selling the state of Arizona. Right now, you could sell us as very competitive from an income tax, very competitive, great universities, good infrastructure, putting more money into K through 12, all of these good things. What does it mean to go from one of the most competitive states, but not the most competitive, but one of the most competitive states with respect to our income tax, which so many small businesses that employ a lot of Arizonans pay, to one of the top 10 highest states? What is that shock to the system, that almost doubling of that top rate mean to us across the country?
Sure. And so the arguments are that the top rate, that's not the effective rate. That's accurate, but the effective rate still goes up. However, in economic development, it's very hard to identify what the effective rate is for individual businesses, for individuals, when you're doing these types of economic analyses. Site selectors that look at different communities are going to look at the top marginal tax rate if they're interested in the individual income taxes. How do I know that? We took the time to talk to people that do this for a living, once again. So we're going to be giving a signal on that. We're on the cusp of going from basically a tier 2 community to a tier 1 state, especially the Phoenix area, but statewide, there's going to be opportunities that are spinoffs because we're going to be getting higher wage jobs. We're going to have more opportunities from California. We have been having people come here and reside in Arizona because of the more competitive individual income tax rates. And after talking to the accountants and the attorneys, I did not realize how easy it was to simply go to Nevada and list a home that you stay in for 6 months in one day. Well, the tax increase on a lot of these higher income individuals is going to be more than the cost of buying a condo in Nevada and just hanging on to it as an investment. So why wouldn't you do that? And that's why the economists that I know that actually understand math, the higher level ones that I've been working with for a long time and I respect, they're concerned about the millionaire exodus. The arguments that are out there that it's irrelevant, those are based on flaw studies. Every one of these studies that I've looked at, it's real easy to do a speed read of a 20 or 30 page report. And within the first 3 or 4 pages, I can identify a dozen major problems that would discredit every conclusion. And so they're not reviewed by peers. If I'm just a strong believer, I'm ranting a little bit on this because I'm finally frustrated enough to do it. I believe the public should have all the information, all the facts, and they should be able to vote on things based on accurate information. Saying that small businesses aren't going to be impacted is the thing that makes me the most angry, because I work very hard to manage my small business. And to say that it's just a pass through to individuals and that's all it is, that's basically saying small businesses don't exist. It's just saying there's just a bunch of employees out there. That is not accurate. I pay taxes even if I don't take the money at the end of the year. That's going to determine how much I put back into the company. These are decisions that I make as an owner. These are decisions that other companies that have multiple owners, partners, make together. The business is the aggregate of the owners. And to say that there's no small business impact, there's nothing in the law that says that, that's just completely inaccurate. And I'm surprised because some of the people saying this actually run a couple of small businesses. The ones that have been more vocal never have.
Well, just the way this is designed, how much would this proposition impact the Fortune 500? How much additional taxes collectively from Apple all the way down would be paid if this passes from those corporations?
It's not going to impact them at all. It's going to be
So
impacting. It's going to be impacting the businesses that help drive our economy. And I'm all for recruiting these large businesses. I help set up some of the economic development programs. I'm always involved in it. I do the analyses of many of them. I'm all for that. But what really drives our economy is that entrepreneurial spirit of people knowing that they can succeed if they want to put in their time and make that investment. And the fact that we're just so short of moving up into this tier 1 territory is problematic, because this is a bad time to be doing that, because those are the types of individuals that are going to be changing their 10-person businesses into 100-person businesses with the right support that we are providing right now. I still think we're going to have we're still going to be one of the better economies going forward if this passes, and we can maybe alter some of the number and alter some of the impacts through some aggressive economic development policy, but it's going to dampen the growth. No one's saying that we're going to go into a recession, but we could do so much better. I just wish that we had a chance to do that over the last couple of years. Sometimes politics gets in the way, other things get in the way, but I'm gonna stand my ground on the fact that we still should try to do things right, even if people are frustrated.
Jim, I want to, in the few minutes we have with you, I want to get your thoughts, just initial thoughts on a new report that's out from the Grand Canyon Institute. It just hit today, so I know you haven't had a chance to do a deep dive on this, but I just want to get your thoughts on this issue of volatility. Both you and the Goldwater Institute and the Arizona Tax Research Association have talked about this segment of revenues are highly volatile. And in fact, the Grand Canyon Institute in its paper acknowledges that. It says, due to the potential volatility in Prop 208 monies, district schools and charter schools would be wise to institute a method for establishing a rainy day fund to avoid situations where an economic downturn leads to salary reductions. Jim, you've been harping on this, on the volatility of this segment of taxpayers for a while.
Yeah, and I can honestly say, without bragging, because it's true, I'm the only one that's been analyzing this that has forecasted all of these revenues in the past. This is the most difficult segment of any revenue to forecast, this higher income group. You literally go from having a 5% increase to a 30% decline. And the estimates that are based on it, the $1 billion is not going to be $1 billion. The estimates are based on an old Department of Revenue analysis. JLBC based their numbers on a revised Department of Revenue analysis that was done in February before COVID. But if you take a look at the business cycle, you can't say revenues from a peak year, if it's an example, are going to stay at that peak year level going forward. We have a business cycle. If you run it through the business cycle, you end up with $650 to $700 million. And the reason that's relevant is that if you take a look at where the monies are going to go, it's not going to be enough to reduce classroom size by that much. It's not going to be enough to, we've already had a salary increase for the teachers, but we're talking about monies that are going to be going to the classroom, that the studies out there that the Pro 208 people are putting out on what you need to do to improve performance, it's not enough. We actually looked at that, but just as a courtesy, we didn't want to hammer on that in our report that we prepared with our friends at Goldwater. So again, we were very fair, but this is going to be difficult for them to manage. And I would not have I wouldn't have hitched my wagon to this revenue source for anything. I thought the corporate income tax was the most volatile until I had to forecast the individual income tax for some clients, and it doesn't even come close.
Well, it's pretty clear also, Jim, that what you're saying is very important. It's not going to, some of these issues that are very important for us to solve, to make progress on the special education weight. This doesn't do this. Educational equity. This doesn't do this. It goes, when you talk about a teacher shortage, which exists in all 50 states, it spreads the peanut butter. There was just a morning scoop earlier this morning that made clear this goes to support personnel. This goes to bus drivers. And look, this is all honorable work, although I'm not, there aren't many kids being transported perhaps today as they were, pre-pandemic. But, there's real issues that we need to face when it comes to our economic recovery and improving the results in our K-12 system, as well as acknowledging we want a robust community college and university system. And we all know that this gives nada to our community college and our university system. So, Jim, I know that you're all in to figure these issues out as we navigate the pandemic and the economic recovery. And I just really appreciate your straightforward analysis of these different studies that are out there.
Well, we're going to keep on it. We spend a lot of time just trying to get economic facts out on different issues, and not everything has a funder, and people like yourselves and myself and others will volunteer their time and try to get more information out. We're even spending time trying to put together the early list on a recovery package, not just this year, but over the next 3 years to help the state, much like we had after the Great Recession. There's going to be some issues like education, performance related to poverty that are going to have to be dealt with, but you deal with those individual issues at the individual level. You don't just in a blanket way say, let's raise taxes and spend more money on education. We have to think more like businesses, which would address their individual problems. And we're going to keep at it.
Sounds good. Good plan.
Jim, thank you for your time today. We know that you are a busy man, so thanks for fitting us in. We'll catch you on the next one.
Sounds good. Take care.